Hello and welcome to CPMAI exam prep. In this session, we will tackle how to overcome exam challenges. First, we will look at the four common pitfalls that trip candidates up, and then we will look into how to spot them and how to fix them. Next, we will break down how to reason through the PMI scenario-based questions, and then we will look into the importance of mock exam and how to practice it. Then we will walk through the six phases of CPMAI life cycle, including the domains that forms the backbone of the exam. Finally, I will share a disciplined study plan that maps out what to learn in each block. Keep the frame in mind, that's clarity first, reasoning second, life cycle third, and disciplined practice as the fourth. These are the key elements for the exam success. The four areas, those are drifts, overfitting and underfitting, algorithm basics, and bias and ethics, are the areas where most of the candidates lose their marks. So let's walk through them in a way you can actually explain and apply during the exam. Let's start with the data drift. In the project language, data drift happens when a model that worked fine at the launch slowly gets worse because the live data has shifted away from what it was trained on. The exam tests two flavors here, the data drift and the model drift. Data drift, where the input distribution itself changes. For example, customer behavior changes after a price hike. Now, the second is the concept drift, where the relationship between the input and output changes. That means the same feature which we have released earlier is no longer predicting the same results. So, you don't identify this drift by gut feel. So, how do you do it? Normally, in the operationalization phase, you monitor accuracy against the live outcomes, then set those thresholds on incoming data and trigger alerts when performance crosses those lines. Next, let's look into how do we correct those drifts. We can take options like retraining models on fresh production representative data, and if it's urgent, we roll back to the last good model while retraining is in progress. The project management takeaway here is very simple. An AI project is never done at deployment. You budget for ongoing monitoring and retraining cadences. Next, let's talk about the overfitting versus underfitting. An overfit model has memorized the training data, including its noise. It dazzles in the pilot but collapses on real data. And let's look into the underfit model. Underfit model is too simple model. It never learned the pattern, so it performed poorly everywhere. How do you tell which one do you have? For that, you need to compare the performance on the training set versus a held out test set. A big gap means it's a overfitting. Weak scores on both the training and the test set means it's a underfitting. Fixing them is about balance. Overfitting can be corrected with a more diverse data, a single model, and regularization and early stopping. It's kind of a more simpler model we are using. Underfitting needs a more capable model, better features, or longer training cycles. This is the bias variance trade-off. And in the evaluation phase, the PM insists on honest testing with the data the model has never seen, never a cherry-picked demo at all. Now the third one is on algorithms, you don't need a math there. What you need is the match the algorithm family to the problem and the data. Supervised learning requires labeled history and predicts known targets. It uses classification for categories, regression for numbers. Unsupervised learning has no labels and finds structures, for example, clustering or anomaly detections. Reinforcement learning by rewards, making sequential decisions like routing or robotics. The exam frames this as a data understanding decisions. So confirm what data and labels you actually have before committing to a technique. Never pick the algorithm first. Finally, let's cover bias and ethics, which threads through the entire life cycle of the AI solutions. Bias enters through the unrepresentative data, biased labels, or feedback loops that amplify skill. You identify it by evaluating performance separately across groups and applying fairness measures like demographic parity or equalized odds. You correct it by rebalancing or augmenting the data, reweighing or adding the human review at the decision points. The headline here is that responsible AI isn't the final checkbox. The governance, documentation, and accountability live in every phase. So remember, drift means it's the ongoing monitoring, fitting means most honest evaluation, algorithm means matching to data, and bias means governance everywhere. If you can explain those four clearly, you will avoid the trap that cost most candidates their marks. Okay. Now let's look into the importance of practice exam. Because CPMAI questions rarely ask for a definition. They hand you a scenario and ask what the project manager should do. So you prepare for the reasoning, not for the recall. Here is the anatomy of a PMI style question. A situation stem, then a leading like what should the PM do first or next, or what is the best response out of those 4 5 options. Several options will be technically true, only one fits the situation. Drill these 4 reasoning steps to find the correct answers. So the first one, locate which CPMAI phase or the domain the scenario belongs to. For example, the data quality problem lives in the data preparation. A degrading model lives in the operationalization. So you need to understand in which domain the scenario is belongs to. The second step, the step 2 is to identify the real risk or the stakeholder concerns the question is probing for. That means there will be a real distractors. You need to identify what the actual ask is here. And the step 3 is the time management. Divide your total minutes by the number of questions so you know your per question budget and never stall on a single item. Choose the best option you feel right at that point, flag it, move on, and come back later if the time permits. After this, we will look at how to leverage the mock exam. This is very important because you should get used to highlighting and strike through capabilities, especially to eliminate the wrong options and manage the time effectively. Because exam reuses the same trap patterns in all the questions. The number of questions covered and the number of questions remaining will tell you whether you need to go faster or you can continue with the current pace. Step 4 is to eliminate the distractor, such as the options that's correct in general but out of scope, the one that skips a required step, and the ones that is technically right but ignores the governance or the stakeholder side. Now let's look into the practice exam and how to leverage that for your practice. Alright, so once you land here, CPMAI exam prep, you see mock exam, FAQs, pricing, and CPMAI study guide. Feel free to browse through the FAQs. Many of the questions are directly from the aspirants here. And then once you go to mock exam, you can leverage the free exam, which is having almost 14 questions, so that you understand what kind of the questions are coming. But to be more effective, leverage the exam set 2 and 3, which is almost same 120 questions for 160 minutes. So that you will get a practice of sitting for 160 minutes at a stretch and making sure you leverage the context. Okay, so once you go here, you see the option, the toolbox like highlighting and strike through. So if you see a question here, it will be having a kind of a context and there will be a one ask, content of the question, and also there will be option somewhat near to that. Okay, so in this question, in the finance sector, a company is implementing an AI system for credit risk assessment. So you practice by what is this? A company is implementing an AI system for credit risk. So risk assessment, this one. And then the project managers need to identify the data subject matter SMEs. Okay, so SMEs. The job here for the PM is to identify the SMEs for that project. Who can help to ensure the accuracy and reliability of the model? What is the effective method to achieve this objective? So objective here is not to build the AI system from it, but first ask is to create the SME list. Okay. So if you see the options, most of them looks valid, correct, but you need to choose the best one. Now you can either choose the highlighting or strike through options. Use the strike through options to eliminate the questions. Focus on the SMU with experience in non-cognitive solutions. So if you see here, we don't want to hire or take someone in the project who doesn't have experience in the non-cognitive, because this system itself is an AI system, right? And as soon as you find that, you just need to strike it through. Okay. Rely on general IT staff for data and financial expertise. This is also similar. General IT staff, we don't need to look into general IT staff, we need a specialized one. Select SME based on their availability rather than expertise. There may be people who are available in the organization, but if they don't have the expertise, I don't think they will be able to add value there. Right? So the remaining one is this one. Engage with the internal data analyst and financial experts. Okay? This is more relevant. You can select this. If you anytime find it's a difficult one, you want to revisit it, feel free to mark it as a mark it for the review. Okay? And you see the time you have taken is 3 minutes for this. Right? So you need to keep practicing these questions and make sure 1 or 1.5 minutes maximum to spend on each time, each question. And once the exam is over, you can also leverage the CPMAI assistant, which is already contextualized on the CPMAI material and my notes. Similarly, you go through all the questions here, and once you finish everything, you can go for the review and submit. Whenever you click on the review and submit, it will give you the details of all the questions which have been highlighted for the review. You end the review or submit for the attempt. You go through each questions, review them, and finally, once the review is done, you go for submit. Once you submit, you see a dashboard here. So you see by the performance by domain. So how much I have scored in the domain 1, domain 2, similarly till domain 5, and also the questions there. You can filter out which are all the correct I have marked, which are all the incorrect or the unanswered, so that I can refer them back. It will filter out those questions at the bottom. If you want to focus on only one of the domain, you can click on that, which are all the questions are there, 31 questions on the business needs and solution, those will get filtered out. If anytime you find you need to understand more about any of the questions, just copy and paste those questions in the AI assistant chat box. Or if you are not aware of any of the concepts, just copy and paste in the AI assistant chat box. Okay? And it will give you the more details regarding that, and you will understand why that option is correct. And if anything additional related to those concepts, you can also query for that. Once you take exam, you can always go back and see if your earlier exams how did you perform there, and which are all the latest attempts you have scored better. The exam content outline is your map because it tells you exactly what is testable. And the backbone you must know is the CPMAI methodology, 6 phases, 5 domains. It run not once, but it's a agile iterations. The domains are identifying the business needs, data readiness, model creation, validations, and operationalization, along with the trustworthy AI. The phases are business understanding, data preparation, model development, model evaluation, and operationalization. According to the CPM AI exam structure, each domain carries a specific weightage, and the number of questions you receive will be proportional to the weightage as displayed here. So domain 2 and 3 carries a weightage of 26% each. Domain 5, the model operationalization carries 17%. Domain 4 and trustworthy AI almost having 16 and 15% respectively. The data and the business blocks together are over half of the exam, so prioritize them. Trustworthy AI is owned through every domain, so questions related to this will appear in all other domains as well. So never skip this. Let's look into the study plan. This plan only helps if you know what to put in each block. So let's load it into the content. Your daily 30 to 45 minutes block should take one life cycle phase at a time. For example, Monday, business understanding, Tuesday, the data understanding, and so on. And for each, you should be able to state its purpose, its activities, and the responsible AI concern attached to that. Your weekend deep dive should be for the mock exams and the rationality review, which we covered in the slide 2 and also in the CPMAI examprep.com. Now, flashcards should carry the terms that trip people up. Something like data drift versus concept drifts, overfitting versus underfitting, supervised versus unsupervised. Like this, whatever the confusing items are there, those will be considered as a flashcards. Every week, practice sitting for 160 minutes at a stretch for this mock exam so that you build the exam stamina. And there is a 3 straight hours kind of a judgment call, feels like a kind of routine for you. Then reserve the final 2 weeks to improve your weak areas. For most candidates, that's the data preparation, evaluation metrics, and the governance. So for more details on CPMAI exam preparation, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and also register for exam questions in the CPMAI exam prep.